A bit of an odder one to look at today, as we actually have Democratic Governor Jared Polis, who, since Trump's win, has 180'd his position and signaled support of RFK Jr. as Trump's Human and Health Services pick, something I think any Democrat who signals support for that they would vote for. I know he's not sitting here and going to vote for him, but if they would, never should be considered for Democratic leadership, because there's numerous concerning facts surrounding RFK Jr., and then there's the objective fact that he's grossly unqualified, all of which we'll get into. But first, let's see what's being said.
Why do you think someone who's questioned life-saving vaccines belongs in the nation's top role?
Well, as you know, I supported Kamala Harris for president, and I hope that we would be celebrating her cabinet appointments, including this one. We've seen a lot of cabinet appointments that are very dangerous and threatening to the country from the incoming president. And I always try to look at the glasses half full. So with regard to Kennedy in particular, he said some false and outright dangerous claims about vaccines, and vaccines have saved millions of lives. At the same time, we have to remember the last time Trump was president, he appointed a pharmaceutical lobbyist as the head of this agency, literally the fox guarding the hen house. I truly believe that RFK is not beholden to Big Pharma. I think he's an independent voice, and I think he's somebody who means what he says when he cares about reducing chronic disease through better nutrition. And if you look at many of the conditions that affect Americans, whether it's diabetes, heart disease, or even cancer.
The problem with a guy like RFK Jr., outside of the fact that he has no medical experience, no medical qualifications. Now remember, anytime Biden makes a pick, it's all about qualifications. Anytime Biden appoints a black person, it's like, well, they're unqualified. They're taking the job from more qualified people. Now RFK Jr., who objectively is very unqualified for this position, gets appointed to something, and all of MAGA supports it. This is why, again, their claims about DEI, completely bullshit. It's just race. None of them care about RFK Jr. That gives the game away. But there's many in terms of concerning problems, right? But the crux of it is that he does hold some good positions, which maybe makes him seem, to some people who aren't like as well read on him, he's a fine pick, right? But for any good position he holds 10 dangerous or absolutely disqualifying positions with it. For any position that he holds on like removing dye from our foods, which is correct, he holds 10 anti-vax positions that are way more dangerous than that is beneficial, like removing school mandates for to name one, right? For example. So his supporters will often try to focus on the, oh, what about this? What about this? Like the good, or maybe that's all they know, right? But one good position doesn't disqualify the other dangerous position someone holds. Hitler's dangerous beliefs weren't justified or excused because, Germany also saw economic growth under him. And it won't matter if we see a minute benefit in, say, removing food dyes on our health or like obesity or something like that, if we see a spike in contagious diseases because of the anti-vax stuff. And people misunderstand what the problem is with Big Pharma. It's become a boogeyman, so much so that now even the right, who is beholden to Big Pharma, like just follow the money, they're beholden to Big Pharma, can even just say Big Pharma, we're gonna go after Big Pharma, and like their base believes them, despite the fact that Trump's like one of his biggest donors is Big Pharma, despite the fact in his last administration he literally did whatever Big Pharma wanted. But it's whatever, right? The problem with Big Pharma is the monopoly power it holds, and being the only seller to multiple buyers in America, it allows Big Pharma to keep raising its prices, as it's the only person to buy from. So you're going to have to buy it no matter what the price is. And this is why the same medicine costs multiple times more in America than it does in other countries, because we have multiple private insurers bidding to buy the same medicines from one buyer, which allows those prices to continually rise. And the way to combat this is to socialize healthcare, right? To now make it where we've gotten rid of all these private buyers and there's only one buyer, which is the government or whatever the public entity would be, which would make this a monopsony, not a monopoly, which would give pricing power to those who are buying. This is economics 101, because it's actually this privatization that's the issue, and it's something that RFK Jr. and Trump both vehemently support in terms of privatized healthcare. So neither of them are going to actually go after Big Pharma. But for those who don't understand why Big Pharma is an issue, again, it's easy to just use it as a boogeyman and say it and then pretend that's what you're fighting.
You're essentially hoping he'll push some of the things that he's been talking about and not what he said about vaccines. You tweeted on August 25th and said, not sure how bringing back measles and polio makes anyone more healthy. What changed from August 25th to now in your view of RFK Jr.?
Well, obviously, I would strongly oppose RFK or anybody trying to get in the way of measles or polio. vaccines, and I don't think he will. Those are good questions for senators to ask him to confirm, in fact, that that's not what he's going to use that office for.
Okay, I really want to touch on the measles thing too, but I think it's really important to start by touching on this kind of charitability shtick that Democrats always do with Republicans that is sickening, considering that Republicans will never return the favor, where these extremist clowns win, and there's always some Democrat who's going on these interviews and is like, well, maybe they won't do the extreme and dangerous stuff, and instead maybe we'll be able to push them to do good things, right? You see Cenk Uygur doing this with Trump right now. We see Jared Polis doing this with RFK Jr. in these clips. Meanwhile, Republicans do like anti-charitability. They're doing the opposite of this, where despite Democrats saying, hey, we don't want to do any of the extreme stuff that you've attributed to us. Let's focus on the issues in the middle. Let's focus on moderate center-left economic solutions. We won't even talk about racism or LGBTQ stuff. And Republicans are still like, they're going to trans the children and all of this like made up bullshit, right? Like, let's stop giving these clowns the respect that they would never give us. And to the measles point, RFK Jr. was tasked in America Samoa with advising during a measles outbreak, where he went and spread anti-vax conspiracies. People stopped vaccinating because of him, and both the rate of infection and mortality shot up after his visit. And this is who Trump wants to give the reins here 4 years after a pandemic.
Maybe if he goes in front of these senators and doesn't spout his conspiracy theories that he's pushed before, that doesn't mean he doesn't still believe them or would echo them from the nation's top health role.
I'm not, I'm not here. We're not going to relitigate the election. My candidate lost. The candidate who won, President-elect Donald Trump, has said many bizarre, untrue things. We can talk about them for hours.
But you are the one who said you're excited about RFK Jr. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, sure. Well, again, compared to the pharmaceutical lobbyist he appointed last time, this is somebody who will take on Big Pharma and is absolutely not a fox guarding a hen house. This is somebody that we have great opportunities to work with on improving nutrition, on addressing chronic disease, and of course, somebody who is pro-climate, pro-choice, essentially shares our democratic values, obviously was a Democratic candidate.
I would probably disagree with most of this. All of RFK Jr.'s biggest donors were lifelong conservative billionaires like Timothy Mellon. And many, if not most, of his views are things that are just not just in the Democratic platform, but that Democrats vehemently reject, right? It's funny to me how with MAGA, any Republican who disowns Trump or comes out against Trump is a rhino. Any Republican that supported Kamala in this election because they thought Trump was a danger is a rhino. By MAGA standard, they're fake Republicans. They were never actually conservatives. Even if it's like Mitt Romney, for instance, who was a literal Republican nominee for president, holds down the line nothing but conservative values and positions. It's no, rhino, fake Republican. But anytime a Democrat becomes a Republican, like Tulsi Gabbard or RFK Jr., and as the left, we're like, hey, yeah, like, I mean, they were never really Democrats anyway. Just look at their views. MAGA is like, oh yeah, right. They're still liberals. It's just Democrats are too woke and they're Democrats who support Trump. Even the left likes Trump. And you see this MAGA even do this with celebrities, right? Which is kind of weird. Like for some reason, the talking point right now is like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan were both Democrats, which is weird. It's weird to lie about something that is so easily disprovable because Elon was self-avowed always a libertarian. He's never been on the left. I don't know if it's like because he makes like electric cars, people are like, he's like a Democrat. I literally don't know where people get that from. He does not have liberal beliefs. He literally is a billionaire also. And Joe Rogan is just anti-establishment. Bernie Sanders was anti-establishment, so he supported Bernie Sanders. The reason he supports Trump is because Trump campaigns like he's anti-establishment and Joe Rogan is really stupid, so it's easy to convince him. And I digress. Right. But I used to actually watch Joe Rogan, like outside of weed, which is like a lot of people on the right anyway, in terms of like younger people have always just been pro weed. Like I feel like the anti-weed is like the older people on either side of the aisle. But like outside of weed, to the extent that he would talk politics, he always took on right-wing framing and positions. And you can even see it in this election, the way he's covering things. It's always with right-wing framing. He literally said in a recent clip that's been going around, he's like, well, I couldn't support Kamala because Tim Walz lied. He's like, yeah, I saw the clip of Tim Walz like lying about his service or something, and that was it. And it's like, but Trump lying about the election, lying about vaccines, lying about his cases, lying about literally all of this. And it's like, Joe Rogan doesn't mention any of that. And this is what I mean by this kind of like framing that is always right wing. The best way I think to describe Joe Rogan is he's like a socially center left guy. Like he doesn't hate gay people. He's not like openly anti-trans at least. He's done some pretty racist. He said some pretty racist things. So I can't say he's like not racist, but like, socially probably center left. He's not all like, like kill the gays and shit like most conservatives are, but like he's right leaning on anything else. He's especially on like foreign things, economic things. But back to what's actually being said about RFK Jr. here. I know he went on a bit of a Joe Rogan tangent. I don't think there's any secret Democrat goals that he'll get accomplished because I don't think he's this secret Democrat. And I would bet money that he runs as a Republican in 2028 too. Mark my words. You heard it here first. I also don't even think he pushes back against Big Pharma. I think that this is, again, where these people kind of make this boogeyman and then use it as their position to kind of cover from like the very horrendous things they want to do that they just can't explain. And then you can also just say, oh, well, it's Big Pharma smearing me. Like, it's the playbook for these guys, right? To the extent he does, I mean, hell yeah, right? But that also wouldn't excuse anything he does on vaccines. But Trump is a tool of Big Pharma. This is what people have to realize. He never goes against them. I don't think he's going to let RFK Jr. do that. And I think that he wouldn't have appointed RFK Jr. if he thought he actually was. He gets donated millions from them. Again, look at his last term. He had like a Big Pharma head in this position. And now he has a conspiracy theorist. What I imagine this 4 years looks like is no actual attacks on Big Pharma, except, well, maybe one like symbolic small win, or maybe one thing, like he'll get one food dye, like one, right? Red 40 removed from our food. Everything else will stay. And it's like just this symbolic thing. So MAGA can always point to that or be like, well, he did this and Trump made America healthy again. And look, they got red. And that's just to kind of cover up on like these constant attacks we're going to see on vaccines. There will be reports about like the dangers of vaccines and things like that to kind of help catapult RFK Jr. to head conspiracy theorist just in time for the 2028 election, where we know what kind of people MAGA likes to vote for.